Hey, Astro Kids, and welcome back. Today we're going to be talking about the full moon in Virgo on March 29th of 2021. So this is a full moon in Virgo, and this is happening in the Hasta Nakshatra. This is a very interesting one, and I was born with this Nakshatra. So this is represented by the hands. And what this Nakshatra is all about is working with the hands. This is about doing works of service, works of good deeds, creative work, writing, carpentry, using your hands to create something. And so this is taking the logical energy of Virgo, but now we're in a moon ruled nakshatra. And so the moon brings that creative factor in where we're able to use this logical application of Mercury and combine it with this ability to actually use that in some sort of creative work or some sort of work where we're getting results. Remember that the moon is also connected to what nurtures us, what nourishes us. And so the moon is also about wealth and security. And so this brings the ability to do jobs that involve the hands, that involve your skills, that involve your intellect to bring in wealth and security. And so this is a very calm, very relaxed type of energy. Virgo is represented by the woman. It is this very much calm, serene, sensitive, intellectual type of energy. And here it's about using that intellect in a practical way, using it to get results. So this is a very work-oriented nakshatra. And within this nakshatra, this full moon is happening within the second pada, which is ruled by Venus. So this is within a Taurus Navamsa. And so this becomes even more artistic. In this actual nakshatra here, this is where we see sculptors, where we see artists from this nakshatra, using the hands in a very creative way, using the hands even in a way that brings about comfort. So you can even see massage therapists from this actual nakshatra. But don't want to get too much into that. I will bring that up in a future video where we go into the actual nakshatras and how that affects you. But through this full moon, this becomes a moon that is really carrying over the energy from this entire week and the week before. So if you recall in our videos on the weekly horoscope, the energy lately has been about using your skills, using your creativity to create something, to work towards something. And so as we come to this full moon in Virgo, this is a time of getting those results from what you've been working on, getting those results from what you've been applying yourself towards. And so this brings about a lot of great results. This is an earth sign. Remember that Virgo is very practical, not only being an earth sign, but also being ruled by Mercury, the planet of logical thinking, and being very much movable and adjustable, with it being a mutable sign also. So from this full moon, this gives us the ability to shape the reality that we want from the things that we've been working towards, from the things that we've been applying in our life. So this is coming to a point now where how much of what you've been doing, how can you apply that to the result that you want? Full moon is an ending, a completion. And so as we come into this space of this full moon in Virgo, this becomes about actually taking the skills that you've used and applying it towards the goal that you want to see. And not only is this a full moon, but this is in its mutual aspect over to a combust Venus. Remember that Venus is still there in Pisces with the Sun. Venus is in its exaltation. And so, if you want to know more about what this exalted Venus in Pisces transit looks like for you, make sure to check out that video. I will leave it above in the link and down below in the description as well. And along with that, if you want to go a little bit more in depth, I did go through how this individually will affect you within your own ascendant or moon sign within the weekly horoscope. So I'll leave all of that down below in the description. But with this aspect over to this combust Venus, there is a little bit of a discrepancy here. This is a Venus ruled para within a moon nakshatra, and it's in this opposition over to Venus that is in its exaltation, but it is also in a combustion. And so we're getting this Venusian energy that is a bit at a weakened state, especially as we've just entered into the sign of Pisces. We're still getting into this energy here of this Piscean world of dreams, of imagination, of creativity, of selflessness, of compassion. Remember that we talked a lot about how the sign of Aquarius is symbolized by the water bearer. It's that pitcher of water that's broken, representing the breaking of the ego. And so when we get to the sign of Pisces, the ego is completely broken. And this is where we come into a space of liberation, a space of openness, compassion, of being connected and tapped into the spirit realm and other dimensions of thought when we come into this sign of Pisces. And so, with the central focus of the sun being here in Pisces, this is about selfless deeds. This is about working towards your calling, towards your purpose, especially with the moon in Hasta, working towards the things that you are sworn to do in your life. Virgo is a very pure and innocent type of sign as it's ruled by Mercury. Remember that Mercury is the young prince. Now, this is a little bit more of a mature energy than Gemini. Gemini with the flightiness and the changeability. Virgo is more about practical application, making adjustments, working towards a goal. And Virgo has this way of working towards a goal, making things work in a very calm and serene way. And so when we come into this energy here of this full moon, this is a very beautiful energy of being able to take the skills, take the knowledge that you've been building and apply it towards what you want to see happen. And especially because this full moon is in a ninth aspect from Jupiter. Even though Jupiter is in its debilitation, it is coming to the end. And we'll talk about that in a future video because here in the month of April, Jupiter will actually shift forward into Aquarius. But Jupiter in Capricorn, this becomes very practical. This becomes very solid. The vision, the goal, the wonder, the quest of Jupiter is come down to earth in the sign of Capricorn. And this is helping this full moon from its ninth aspect. Remember that the number 9 is all about good luck, blessings, abundance. It's connected originally to that ninth house. And so this is a very fortunate aspect from Jupiter, where Jupiter is a beneficial planet. It is bringing us the results, and especially in a sign like Capricorn. It's giving us the practical results of what we want to see actually happen. So, this practical, this realistic sign of Virgo, with the moon here in the moon's nakshatra, of nourishment, of comfort, of emotional connection, within this Venus ruled pada, also of comfort, of pleasure, of happiness, of peace. This becomes a very positive full moon here, where we can see some results take place. Those of you who have been working towards something, especially depending on where this is positioned in your chart, we'll see some actual results take place from this full moon. This also can be a very relaxing and peaceful time for a lot of you. The energy of this Hasta Nakshatra is very mellow. It is very relaxed. So even though this is a very business-oriented Nakshatra, very much about working towards a goal, making things happen, it does it in a very calm, methodical type of manner. And so this is also bringing in this very relaxed and chilled out energy here in the sign of Virgo, and especially in this Taurus Navamsa. Now, this is also getting a fifth aspect from Rahu. Remember that Rahu is in transit in the sign of Taurus in that conjunction with Mars. We had that Mars transit start out in February. If you're not familiar what Mars in Taurus is doing in its conjunction here with Rahu, feel free to check out that video on Mars in Taurus. I'll leave that down below in the description, so make sure to check that out. That will give you some more info on how this Mars in Taurus transit is working. But with Rahu in Taurus, this becomes all about our desires. Remember that Rahu is a very karmic planet. It's one of our shadow planets. So it's dealing with our shadow lessons, and especially collectively, what are the shadow lessons that we're going through with this K2 in Scorpio and Rahu in Taurus? That there's a lot of change, a lot of transformation, and this desire to go towards something that is stable, something that's secure with Rahu in Taurus. Remember that Taurus is our foundation. Taurus is all about family, comfort, security, wealth. It is that solid foundation from which we want to build from. And so with Rahu and Taurus, there's this collective goal that is towards bringing about stability and security, right? We're all in this space, and this started last year as Rahu entered into Taurus back in September, that this is all about this collective goal, this collective desire to move towards what is safe and comfortable. And this is coming off of K2 in Scorpio, which is trying to show us the change, the internal work that needs to be done. Scorpio, remember, is carrying the poisons, the toxins that we need to heal and work through. So Scorpio is that sign that drops you into your own darkness, into your own fears, and has you actually work through those things. And with K2 there, that is the spiritual lesson. That is the previous karma that is coming to the surface. And so there's a lot being revealed to us through this actual Rahu K2 axis of Taurus and Scorpio, where we are being forced to face the reality of the changes that need to be made in order to get to that peaceful, comfortable space that we're looking for. But with Rahu making this aspect over to the moon, this is a huge part of this full moon in Virgo of what is the reality that you want for yourself? What is it that you desire? What is that comfort, that stability, that security? What does that look like for you? What is it that you're trying to move towards? And especially with Mars there is a hot temper and passion towards this desire of getting towards that place of comfort, of stability. This Mars in Taurus is persistent, it's determined. And we have this drive towards this outcome, towards this goal. But remember that Rahu is an illusion. Rahu is taking towards this desire, this goal that you want for yourself. But is it really fulfilling in the end? Rahu tends to show us that our desires are not really what we want in the long run. When we get to that goal, when we get to that outcome, it's not everything that we thought it was. And so this really is a time to think through, what is that goal? What is that achievement? What is that thing that you really want? And is it really something that is going to bring you some sort of joy in your life, some sort of peace, some sort of direction? Or is it really just an illusion that you're chasing? And with Rahu in this fifth aspect over to the moon, a lot of us in this moon are realizing when this full moon comes around that everything that we've worked towards, everything that we put our focus in, is not quite everything that we thought that we wanted. Because Rahu is making this fifth aspect over to the moon. Remember that the fifth house is connected to children. It's what we create, it's what we produce, it's what we bring into existence. There is something about this aspect here that is everything that we desired, everything that we wanted to move towards. Is it everything that we envision or hope for? Is that really what we want in the end? And we'll talk more about that when we get into the actual cards that came up for this reading as well. But huge focus here on the outcome, on the practical application of what we want to see happen. But is it really what we want? Because Rahu is bringing in that illusionary factor as well. So this is for all of the fire signs. If you are an Aries ascendant or Aries moon, then this full moon will be happening in your sixth house. So this is a time of really working towards a goal, working towards a routine. And some of you are even feeling more connected to having a routine or having things in order in your life. And this becomes a really solid time to make sure that your health is in shape. Make sure that your work is in order. Remember that the moon brings a fluctuating factor. The moon is bringing you a lot of positivity, though, as it is a full moon, and especially as it's getting these beneficial aspects from Rahu and Jupiter. That this is a time of abundance, of completion, of joy in this area of work for you. And remember, this is strongly coming through for those of you with an Aries ascendant because you have the original setup for the astrology. You are the universal chart as an Aries ascendant. And so this is really a time of getting the results that you want towards your goals, towards your achievements. But with Rahu, that is there in the sign of Taurus in your second house, there's a little bit of an illusion around the actual things that you want to attain at this time. Is this really everything that you thought that it would be? There's a little bit of an illusion of needing to go out and to get these external things with Rahu there in your second house of your wealth, of your possessions. But at this time, there is something about going inward. K2 is sitting in your eighth house, where this is a time to go deeper. This is a time to go into the fear, the doubt, the worry, the desires. This eighth house, remember, is ruled by Scorpio. Very intense for an Aries ascendant. This is really time to reflect internally on what you want. Is it really what you desire? Is it really what you want? Rahu is casting that shadow over your second house and has been for some time. But remember that this is aspecting from its fifth position over to your full moon that is happening here in the sixth house for you. So this is really a time to think about, is this exactly what you want or is it not? And there is a little bit of this analysis to this as well, where some of you can be a little bit worrisome also with this full moon in your sixth house, where you are wondering, is this all really going to work out or is it not? Remember that Jupiter is also making an aspect over to this full moon as well. And it is sitting there in your 10th house. And so there is something about this also where this is your destiny, this is your purpose that you're trying to move towards. But is it really worth it? Is it really what you thought it would be? With Rahu casting that shadow over your second house. And so, really, at this time, your Artha houses are strongly being impacted. Remember that those Artha houses are all about your material gains, your material duties, your work. And so there is a huge lesson focused around your physical duties and physical goals in this life. Is everything that you're trying to gain and acquire, is it really what you want? So this question comes up here with Jupiter that is sitting there in your 10th house. A lot to ponder, a lot to question in terms of the goal, the outcome, the purpose behind all of this, especially with Jupiter and its debilitation in Capricorn. Capricorn is bringing a little bit of that fear aspect into this. So, this is really a time, especially to ponder over these things, to make sure that everything that you're trying to accomplish is something that you really want for yourself. Now, this is a full moon that is in an opposition to a combust Venus that is hanging out in your 12th house. So, there's a lot of this subconscious desire around the things that you want. And again, this is where, is this conscious? Is this something that you really feel that you resonate with, that you really want? Or are you just doing this on a loop? Are you just doing this on autopilot where you think that this is what you want, but in your heart, in your soul, is this actually what you want? For those of you who have a Leo ascendant or Leo moon, this is a full moon in your second house. Great time to acquire a lot of wealth and security. And this could be a time where you feel more connected to your family, to those closest to you. Some of you even reminiscing on your roots, on your upbringing, with this full moon here in your second house. A lot that you can benefit from during this time based upon the things that you've been working on, that you've been working towards throughout these last 2 weeks. This full moon really is able to bring a great outcome to you. You want to be careful though, because the moon is a fluctuating factor. The moon is going through phases and cycles, and it is strongest here in the full moon. So you want to be careful of impulse. Are you being impulsive? Are you just acting on instinct at this point? You want to have a plan, a strategy. You want to be effective in the way that you are actually using the things that you've acquired. Remember that this is Virgo that we're talking about. This is a full moon in Virgo. Practical application. How can you use what you are gaining and acquiring to your advantage? Now, from there, the full moon is making a mutual aspect over to a combust Venus. And this is a combust Venus in your eighth house. Very intense. This is a time of intense desires, of what you really want to see happen. And for a lot of you, you are acquiring an outcome, or you're acquiring the proof that the outcome is coming with this full moon. This aspect between your eighth and second house, these are money houses. These are houses that give results. But remember that the eighth house is a very difficult house that brings about a lot of challenges. And the second house, even, is, remember, a Marca house. These are stressful houses. And there is something to say here for those of you with a Leo ascendant about partnership. Partnership is a huge thing coming into this. Do you need help? Do you need support at this time? And Rahu, which is in Taurus, is making this aspect over to your full moon. And so Rahu is positioned there in your 10th house, with K2 there in your 4th house. This is an interesting combination. A lot of you are being shown that you need some support, you need some guidance to move towards this big goal that you're trying to reach. With Rahu there in your 10th house, there's this desire to reach a certain position, a certain status, a certain outcome. And K2 there in your 4th house, trying to give you the support through connection, through your actual foundation, through the things that nurture you. And so this becomes an important aspect of this full moon for you, is how can you get the support that you need? How can you get the resources that you need? Now from there, Jupiter is also making its aspect over to the moon, its 9th aspect. And Jupiter sits there in your 6th house. And so again, this becomes about working towards what you want to see happen. Jupiter is the vision, the dream. It is the mission. And it is here in your 6th house of work. A lot of you have a big picture goal in mind. You have something big that you are aiming towards. And so again, the support for a lot of you is needed. Making sure that you have the proper resources, making sure that you are using this practical application of this full moon. This is what is going to give you the most results coming into this lunar phase that we're entering into here on the 29th. Now, for those of you with a Sagittarius Ascendant or Sagittarius Moon, this is a full moon. And this is happening for you in your 10th house. Big full moon for you. This is a time where you can acquire a lot. A full moon in your 10th house. Remember that the 10th house is about your career, it is about your status, it's about your achievements. This is a huge time where you can use your skills, your knowledge, the things that you've gained and acquired during these couple of weeks coming up to this moment to achieve the goal that you want. A lot of you can see some results coming into this full moon. Of course, you want to keep in mind the planets that are also involved with this. What is the state of Mercury in your chart? Are there any planets in your 10th house or aspecting to your 10th house? But this becomes a great time for you to see some abundance, some results coming into this full moon. From the full moon, it is being aspected from by a combust Venus that is there in your 4th house. And so for a lot of you, there is this strong desire for home, for comfort, for security, for connecting back to your family. And for a lot of you, this is coming true with this full moon that is giving you the results in your work, in your career, in the outcome. From there, Jupiter's also giving a 9th aspect. And this is Jupiter that's sitting in your 2nd house, as it has been for this entire transit here of Jupiter in Capricorn. And so this has been quite the interesting time for those of you with a Sagittarius ascendant. Jupiter is a beneficial influence for you as it is controlling your 1st and your 4th house. And so Jupiter has been giving a lot of you some great results with it being in Capricorn, even though it's in debilitation. Jupiter is a functional benefic for your chart. It's here in the 2nd house of wealth, of security. There's a lot here that you can see in terms of outcomes, in terms of abundance, especially as Jupiter is giving a 9th aspect over to this full moon in your 10th house. A lot of you are getting results from your work life. So let's go ahead and jump into the earth signs. So if you are a Taurus ascendant or Taurus moon, this is a full moon in your 6th house. in your fifth house. So this is a time of your work, of your achievements, of your creation. And what a creative full moon this is to be in your fifth house of creativity. This is a great time for you to use your creative skills and talents to bring about a result in your life. And for a lot of you, you've been working towards this project, you've been working towards this goal that you're trying to achieve. And this moment of this full moon giving you some closure, giving you some completion towards this goal. And for some of you, this looks like an end result. For some of you, this just looks like a confirmation that you are going to receive those results. This is Virgo, and it wants to give you a practical picture. It wants to give you the real results. Remember that this is an earth sign ruled by the planet of logic. This is trying to give you some detailed, clear cut results of what you want to see happen in your life. This is making an aspect over to a combust Venus in your 11th house. Beautiful energy, even though this is a combustion, it's in your 11th house of gains. For a lot of you, you have these creative visions, these strong desires and goals that you're trying to achieve. And this full moon is here to give you the results. It is here again to bring you that closure, that completion. You want to be careful, though, to make sure that what you want, what you desire, is everything that you truly desire in your heart. Remember that Venus is not functioning correctly in a combustion. So even though Venus is exalted, it is combust. Venus is poorly functioning in this position. It is in your 11th house of gains, of hopes and dreams. Are your dreams really coming from a place that resonates with you? Or is it something that you believe that you should want? This becomes a huge question for those of you with a Taurus ascendant or Taurus moon. The moon is also being aspected over by Rahu, which is in your first house. So, for those of you with a Taurus ascendant, you are living the illusion. You are living this place of the Maya, of the desire, of what you're chasing. This is what you're living in this moment, as it's there in your ascendant. And so, this becomes very interesting where you want to make sure again that everything that you're going after, is it really what you want? Or is it what you think you want? Is it what you think you should want? This is a huge question for those of you with a Taurus ascendant or Taurus moon, as Rahu is making this fifth aspect. Remember that the number 5 resonates with children. It resonates with what you're creating. And so, are you really trying to create something that you really want in your heart and soul? Or is this just the illusion of Rahu, of this chasing, of this desire, of the Maya, of the illusion? This becomes a huge question for those of you with a Taurus moon or Taurus ascendant. Now, this is also receiving a ninth aspect over from Jupiter. So Jupiter is hanging out there in your in your ninth house of your beliefs, of your wisdom, of your teachers, of your guidance. So Jupiter is here trying to save you through your mentorship. For a lot of you, there are people around you who are giving you guidance. And even for those of you who aren't being guided by a person, you're being guided by your intuition, by the universe. This is a time where you want to trust the guidance that is being given to you. This is what will give you the greatest result during this period. For those of you who are not listening, for those of you who believe you know that you want this thing that you just think that you want, that you don't actually want, there is an emptiness to this. There is this emptiness of not really achieving anything that you actually want. Remember that this is a full moon, this is a completion. But is that completion actually a closure, actually something that you are coming to terms with as a result, as an outcome? Or is that a closure as an ending, as something being left behind, as this emptiness that is coming forward? And so, for those of you with a Taurus ascendant or Taurus moon, this is a time of which way are you going? Are you going towards the ending of a goal where you are actually getting something out of this, where you're actually achieving the results that you want? Or is this the ending towards something that you don't want? So, this dynamic of being fulfilled and not being fulfilled becomes a huge part of this full moon for those of you with a Taurus moon or Taurus ascendant. For those of you with a Virgo ascendant or Virgo moon, this is a full moon in your first house. Very beneficial. With the full moon in your first house, this is an ending. This is a completion. You are at the end of an old chapter. Remember that this is the moon that has left your 12th house and moved into your first house. And so everything that you've imagined, everything that you've dreamed, you're able to manifest that into your reality. This is the end of what you envision, what you imagined. This is a time to actually see the fruits of what you wanted, of what you desired, of what you worked towards. So, with this full moon in your first house, this can be both a time of sadness and a time of joy, depending on your situation. For those of you, a lot of you are ending something that was unhealthy for you, as this is a full moon coming off of the moon in your 12th house. So a lot of you are ending something that wasn't healthy for you, something that was toxic, something that was you just doing things on autopilot that didn't actually feel right, that didn't actually feel good, and now you're ending it. You're bringing it to a completion. And so this is both a sad moment for you and a joyful moment because you're ending something that is no longer for you. This is very hard for you, though, to let go of this, to move on from this. And for a lot of you, this is relationship oriented with a combust Venus in your seventh house of partnership. For a lot of you with a Virgo ascendant or Virgo moon, you are ending a connection that is no longer good for you. Remember that a combust Venus is not functioning correctly. Venus is in a challenging position where it is in this place of being tired, being exhausted, being burnt out. And with Venus in its exaltation of Pisces, it only wants what is good for your highest, greatest good. Venus is at its highest functioning in the sign of Pisces. But we're getting this contradiction here where, in order to get to that highest point of Venus, of love, of compassion, of joy, of peace, something has to be burnt out or ended. This is the completion, this is the closure, this is the moment of needing to fully release and let go of the things that are not right for you. From this, Rahu is also aspecting the full moon. And this is aspecting from your ninth house. So this is very interesting where a lot of you are desiring self-mastery. A lot of you are desiring to learn and grow from this experience. And because of this, this is giving you this ability to cut ties with what no longer serves you. With K2 in your third house, you have come to the point where you have been able to communicate or voice what needs to be healed and worked through. So this is a very healthy moment for those of you with a Virgo moon or Virgo ascendant, where you are coming to this point of this divine ending and completion in your life, removing what no longer serves you. And with Jupiter in its ninth aspect over from the fifth house, this is a time to start fresh. This is a time to work towards something that is in your favor. Remember that that fifth house is a trikona house. And so this is a time to work towards the things that really do benefit you, the things that really do bring you good results in your life, especially with this being Capricorn ruled. What is the goal? What is the plan of what you actually want to achieve that brings you joy, that brings you happiness? This is closing out those chapters of suffering or of going through these old karmic lessons that have been taking this toll on you. And for a lot of you, again, through your partnerships, through other people, there is this ending or this closure that needs to take place here. For those of you with a Capricorn ascendant or Capricorn moon, this is a full moon taking place in your ninth house. So this is a very interesting time of actually acquiring the knowledge, acquiring the information, acquiring the belief that you need to move towards your goals. And for a lot of you, this has been a hard time. For Capricorn moons, Capricorn ascendants, you've had this big combination of Saturn, Jupiter, Pluto in your first house. This has been an intense time period for a lot of you, especially if you are running a dasha period of Jupiter or Saturn. This has been intense. This is a time here of actually believing and moving towards things, because with Saturn in your first house, a lot of you are in this place of fear or hesitation. There's something big here where your mentors, your teachers, your guidance, your intuition, whatever it is that is guiding you, motivating you, giving you that wisdom, that knowledge that you need, is bringing you to a point where you are able to move towards the things that you want to achieve. And this is in an opposition over to a combust Venus that is in your third house. And so this has been an interesting time of difficulties around communication. With a combust Venus in the third house, a lot of you having difficulty around actually communicating in this Venusian way of making deals, of making arrangements, of coming to a place of closure, of understanding. This has been quite a difficult time. This is a combust Venus in its exaltation, though, where Venus is trying to take you to the highest possible place. And remember that it's in Pisces, which is a sign of surrender. And so this is a moment of letting go of what no longer serves you, of letting go of the thoughts, of the perception of what you thought wasn't possible, of what you thought you couldn't achieve, of what you didn't have that courage to actually move in the direction of. Remember that that third house is also connected to our courage and our skill sets. And so this is really a time of waking up and realizing something that you haven't seen before in this actual transit. Waking up and realizing the bigger picture, realizing the ability to work and move through these things that have been holding you back, that have been keeping you stuck in this Saturnian prison. Remember that Saturn is a planet of delay, it is a planet of restriction. But ultimately, Saturn is trying to give you long term results. Saturn's being hard on you to try to give you these long-lasting results. And so this is a time of not needing to live in fear, but being patient, being persistent, realizing that eventually you're going to get to where you want to be. Now, this is also receiving an aspect from Jupiter that's sitting in your first house. Again, Jupiter is trying to give you that positivity. Jupiter is trying to give you that optimism, and Jupiter is leaving. It is getting ready to leave from this debilitated position here in your first house and into your second house. So Jupiter is trying to wake you up a little bit. It's trying to make you understand that the vision, that the goal, that the journey is not impossible. So let's go ahead and move on to those of you with an air sign. So starting off here, for those of you with a Gemini Ascendant or Gemini Moon, this is a full moon here in your fourth house. So this is an interesting time. This is a very lucky time for a lot of you. This is a time of really receiving joy, peace, abundance, as this is a full moon in your fourth house of peace, nourishment, comfort, luxury, joy, home life. This is a time of getting the things that you wanted to achieve. But this has been a time where it's been hard to see the positivity of how this could all possibly work. This is a combust Venus in your 10th house of your goals, of your achievement, of your career, of your position in life. There's been a little bit of a difficulty around this area here of actually being able to get some peace, get some results from what you're trying to accomplish. Venus is not quite functioning correctly. But with Venus in its exaltation of Pisces, it's trying to get you to let go. It's trying to get you to surrender to the idea that you will receive the fortune, that you will receive the happiness that you're looking for. And remember that the happiness is within, as the fourth house is the house of happiness and inner peace. It's actually connected to your state of mind. It's connected to your sanctuary, your homeland of your nourishment. And so this becomes about actually taking care of yourself on a mental, physical, spiritual, emotional level, making sure that you're healthy on all levels. This is what gives you the results. Letting go of those things that are interrupting your internal peace, your internal happiness. Letting go of those things that are taking away from your health, again, on all levels. Now, from there, Rahu is aspecting over to your full moon here in your fourth house. It is making the fifth aspect over from your 12th house. And so, again, this becomes a time about releasing, surrendering. That 12th house is a house of losses and expenditure. This is a time to let go. And this is very difficult as Rahu is sitting back in that 12th house. We like to say that that is one of the most spiritual positions to have Rahu. But really, what Rahu's trying to do back in the 12th house is escape. It's trying to escape from the problem. Because remember that K2 is in that sixth house of conflicts. There's something big of needing to work through the difficulties, needing to face the difficulties, and to let go of that, to heal through that, to surrender through that. With Rahu there making this fifth aspect. What you create, what you make possible, comes from your ability to let go of these difficulties that plague you from having that peace of mind. So, this is a huge time of emptying your negative thoughts, emptying your negative attachments that are keeping you from what you want to achieve. Because what you want for a lot of you is this feeling of freedom, of peace, of enjoyment. Rahu back in the 12th in a healthy way is about acquiring peace and liberation. On the unhealthy level, it is about escaping the problem. And so this becomes a huge theme for those of you with a Gemini moon or Gemini ascendant. Also, Jupiter is making its ninth aspect over to your full moon as well. And this is Jupiter that is really trying to give you this positivity, trying to bring you to an understanding. This is Jupiter in your eighth house. So this is trying to transform you. It's trying to take you through that healing process, through that ability to work through the shadows, to work through the difficulties. Remember that that eighth house originally is controlled by Scorpio. And so this is trying to get you to be more optimistic, be more future oriented towards the goal, towards the outcome. As you're going through all these changes, as you're going through all these difficulties, Jupiter is trying to act as a saving factor. And even though for a lot of you, Jupiter is a difficult planet because it's the opposite of your actual planet Mercury, Jupiter's trying to give you some good results in this practical sign of Capricorn. Now, for those of you with a Libra moon or Libra ascendant, this is a full moon happening in your 12th house. And so this time for you becomes all about letting go. This full moon is a point of completion, and it's in your 12th house of endings, of completions, right? This 12th house is all about expenditure, losses, liberation. And so with the full moon here, this becomes a time where there's a lot subconsciously that needs to be released, that needs to be cleared out. For those of you with a Libra moon, Libra ascendant, a lot of work here that needs to be done in terms of letting go of the difficulties in life, especially with a combust Venus sitting there in your sixth house. Remember that Venus is your ruler, and Venus is in this combustion where it is burnt out, it is exhausted. And so this is a time of needing to let go of those things that have plagued you, that have burdened you, to actually work through these things so that you can let go, so that you can detach, so that you're not continuing to hold on to these more toxic things that are putting this burden, this baggage, this weight on you. And with Venus in its exaltation of Pisces, especially, this is time to let go. This is time to release those old things that you've been clinging on to. And remember that this is different for those of you who have a Libra moon or Libra ascendant. This is not your sun sign. Libra ascendants have Venus controlling their first and eighth house. Your eighth house, yes. This is a lot of energy in terms of being able to cling on to the things that are negative. And so this is your time to balance things out. This is your time to bring about that peace back into your life by clearing out those things that are difficult, that are complicated, that you've been holding on to. Jupiter is also making its ninth aspect over to this full moon as well. Jupiter sits in your fourth house. And so this is a time of support. This is a time for emotional support for a lot of you with a Libra moon or Libra ascendant. Reaching out to your family, reaching out to those things that you know bring you this happiness, this nourishment, in order to bring yourself back into a place of peace. So this is really a healing time, a clearing time, a letting go time for those of you with a Libra moon or Libra ascendant. Now, for those of you with an Aquarius moon or Aquarius ascendant, this is a full moon taking place in your 8th house. And so this is really a time of great change for you. The full moon is already a fluctuating factor, and it is here in your 8th house of sudden ups and downs. This is a time for a lot of you with an Aquarius Ascendant and Aquarius Moon where you're going to see some sudden fluctuations, especially when it comes to the things that are deep, that you are deeply invested in. So, your relationships, your finances, the things that you hold very closely, you can see some change and fluctuation. And this is Venus trying to get you to let go of the things that you've held onto that are not of true worth, not of true value. Remember that Venus has been combust here in your 2nd house. And as Venus is in this exaltation of Pisces, it's trying to let go. Remember that that highest position of Venus, when it comes into the sign of Pisces, becomes about surrender. It becomes about liberation. It becomes about compassion, about understanding as it comes into Pisces. And so this is really a time to come into a place of compromise, a place of letting go, a place of allowing these changes to unfold. So for those of you who have been holding on, trying to hold out some of the changes that need to happen in your life, this is it. This is time for you to actually let those changes unfold. From there, Rahu is aspecting from its 5th spot over to the full moon, sitting there in your 8th house, and Rahu sits there in your 4th house. And so this is a time, once again, of finding peace, of finding closure. That 4th house is all about your state of mind. It's all about the things that nourish you, the things that bring you peace. And so this becomes a point of needing to let go of what no longer is for you, letting go of what no longer is meant for you. And so, yes, this is requiring you to make changes, for you to go through intense changes during this time, and especially with Jupiter making its 9th aspect back from your 12th house. So, Jupiter is here urging you to let go, to release, to go inward. Jupiter, remember, is a very spiritual planet. It is the ruler of Pisces. And so this is a time for many of you to go into reflection, to go into yourself, to actually go inward and to see the things that need to be worked through spiritually, energetically, to let go, to release at this point. Jupiter wants you to really go inward. And so this is a time where huge, massive changes are happening for those of you with an Aquarius Moon or Aquarius Ascendant. Now let's move on to our last bunch here, which are the water signs. So for those of you with a Cancer Ascendant, this is a full moon happening in your 3rd house. So this is a time here of ending old connections. Remember that this is a house of communication. And so for a lot of you, this is time to seal the deal. This is time to come up with what is the point of this conversation? How can you find closure? How can you find the end result of this? So for a lot of you, if you are writing, if you're doing communication work, if you're publishing, this could be a time where you are starting to come to an end, where you're starting to see the end of this result actually coming into fruition. So this is time for you to start to come up with the finalization of your plan, of your skill, of your craft, of what you're communicating, of what you're writing, starting to come to that point of ending and completion. And Venus is trying to give you this support through your 9th house. And so for a lot of you, the inspiration, the wisdom, the knowledge that's coming in is here for you so that you can actually come to that point of completion, so that you can actually get this thing done. Remember that that third house is still about your courage, your skill set. So it is about actually getting tasks done, working on skills, getting to that end result. And so this is a time where if you've been sitting stagnant, if you have been close to the end, but you can't quite finish, that flash of inspiration's coming in. Venus wants you to finally let go, to finally find that closure as it sits in your ninth house. Now, this is also getting a fifth aspect from Rahu, which sits back in your 11th house. So a lot of you, again, you've been working hard at a skill, at a goal, at a project with Rahu there in your 11th house. You have big hopes, you have big dreams, you're trying to create something big, and this is letting you know that this is time for you to come to that point of completion. Remember that the number 5 is connected to creativity. It's making that fifth aspect over to this full moon. This is time to wrap things up. This is time to come up with the plan, the outcome, the result that you want to see. Jupiter is also making its ninth aspect over to the full moon as well. And Jupiter is sitting there in your seventh house. And so for a lot of you, you are getting support. You are getting support at this time to finish your goal. And so whether this means that you are actually in a partnership or you are, especially many of you are in a business partnership where you're receiving the support, you're receiving what you need to actually finalize your plan, to actually see your result through. So this is a very positive aspect. This could also be just that you are receiving some wisdom and inspiration through other people that is allowing you to work towards what you want to see unfold. So Jupiter is giving you a lot of blessing at this time. Now, for those of you with a Scorpio moon or Scorpio ascendant, this is a full moon happening in your 11th house. And so this is very beneficial. A lot of you are coming to a point where you're going to see some big results take place. So for a lot of you who have been hoping and dreaming and wishing towards some big plan, some big result. You've been calculating the steps, you've been working methodically towards it. This full moon is bringing you the closure, the completion. And even if you're not seeing the end results actually finalized, this is letting you know that you are close. You are close to the completion of what you are trying to create. And for a lot of you, you have this strong desire of what you want to create, what you want to make happen with that combust Venus in your fifth house. And as Venus is in its exaltation of Pisces now, you're coming into this point of closure. Pisces is the sign of ending. And so this is a time hugely for many of you where you're coming into this place where you know that things are ending. They are starting to work for you. They're starting to come to that point of completion that you have been waiting for. Now, this is also getting a fifth aspect from Rahu, which sits in your seventh house. And so, for a lot of you, you have this strong desire towards partnership, towards working with others. A lot of you who have been more reclusive, who have been more inward, Rahu in your seventh house really makes you more connected to other people. At the same time, K2 in your first house is taking you through a spiritual journey, through a transformation. And so, for a lot of you with a Scorpio ascendant, big changes are happening, especially if you're going through a Rahu or K2 Mahadasha at this time. Big changes and shifts that are happening for a lot of you where you are coming out of your shell a little bit. K2 is helping you to go inward and go through these very intense transformations. And so from this, Rahu is actually giving you the support from other people. a lot of you are gaining a lot through others at this time. So whether you work with other people, whether you're in a partnership, whatever the case may be, you're getting some sort of result from other people at this time. And so this becomes a huge part of the results of the completion of the outcome that you're seeing. Also, Jupiter is giving its ninth aspect over from your third house. This has been a big influence for those of you with a Scorpio Ascendant or Scorpio Moon. Jupiter in the third house, making you more talkative, more courageous, more so about going towards your goal, your vision in life. Jupiter has been opening up this area for a lot of you for quite a bit now. So this is a time of actually seeing the results, seeing the success taking place for a lot of you for what you've been working towards, what you've been envisioning with that third house activation from Jupiter. Now, for those of you with a Pisces ascendant or Pisces moon, this is a full moon taking place in your seventh house. This is a point where a lot of you are coming to a place of closure in your partnerships, in your dealings with other people. And so this can look differently for a lot of you. Many of you are actually ending a relationship, but a lot of you are simply just coming to a finalization, a closure within your actual connection of what you've been working on together, of what you've been working towards. Remember that this is a very creative full moon, as it is in the moon's nakshatra within a Venus ruled para. So this is a time where a lot of you have been working towards a goal, you've been working on a craft, and now this is starting to come to an end point, starting to come to a completion, where some of you may actually be letting go of your partnership, your connection, because you've done the work together, you've worked towards the goal, and now it is starting to come to its completion, its finalization. And this can be very difficult for you to detach from. With a combust Venus sitting there in your first house, a lot of you have these strong desires, these strong attachments that are happening. But with Venus in its exaltation in your first house, it's time to let go of this. And as Venus has left your 12th house, a lot of you know this at a subconscious level. A lot of you know this at a certain level that this is coming to an end. This is time to let go. This is the point in which this story is ending, in which it's closing, in which your results, your finalization, what you want to see is starting to come through. Rahu is also giving its fifth aspect over to the full moon from your third house. And so this has been a time of this desire to work towards your goal, towards your skill, towards your craft. And especially for a lot of you, you've been getting a lot of spiritual insight, a lot of creative insight from K2 in your ninth house. Very deep position where a lot of you have been able to pull through a lot of deeper insight and vision and inspiration. And this pours into your skills of what you're accomplishing, what you're working towards. And with Rahu, with the fifth aspect, it's giving you the results. Remember that the number 5 is connected to children. It's connected to creativity. It's what you create, what you bring into reality. And so Rahu is giving you this. It is giving you what you want to see happen. But you also have to ask yourself the question of, is what you've been talking about, what you've been working towards, what you have poured your skills into, is it fully what you want? And for a lot of you, doing these little things, working towards these little goals, actually are showing you that there's something even bigger. K2 in the ninth house is showing you an even bigger vision, an even bigger goal than just this, that takes you on a spiritual quest, on a spiritual journey. So you're not just gaining physical, tangible results from this, but this is giving you something even higher than that. This is giving you some spiritual insight, some wisdom, something that you've never seen before through this actual application that you're putting into your work, into your goals at this time. Jupiter is also making its ninth aspect over to the moon from your 11th house. And so, again, you're getting the gains that you want. You're getting everything that you wanted to see happen. Now, some of you have some fears. You have some hesitation around this, as this is Jupiter in its debilitation. But Jupiter is coming out of its debilitated state as it is entering into the sign of Aquarius here in just a few weeks. And we will talk about that as we get into the Jupiter and Aquarius transit that we will talk about in a future video. But Jupiter here in your 11th house is giving you the results. It's giving you what you want to see happen. And so these fears, these hesitations, Jupiter wants you to take a back seat on that because it doesn't matter if you're afraid of the result, it's going to happen anyway. And so there is a needing of acceptance to take place in this. There is a needing to accept the fact that you're coming to this place where you may be letting go of something old, if it's a partnership, if it's something that you've been holding on to for all this time, because you're coming to the final moment. You're coming towards the completion. And for some of you, you might even be graduating soon, as this is activating your ninth house as well, where there's something big that's ending. There's an old chapter here of what you've been learning, what you've been growing in, what you've been working towards. So the cards that came up for this full moon in Virgo were the seventh house, fire, and Sagittarius. And so once again, as we mentioned earlier, this is a very creative week. This is centered around your work life. And for some of you, this involves partnerships, teamwork. For some of you, it simply involves some sort of service or act that you're doing for others, or what others are seeing in terms of your accomplishments, in terms of your goals, of what you're trying to make work. But other people becomes a huge factor here because of this seventh house, where a lot of you, again, are either closing out relationships, getting into relationships, or finding results through other people. This is also a time where, again, with fire in reverse, you want to be careful about your desires. Is this something that you really want in your heart and soul for you? Or is this something that you think that you should want, or that society tells you that you should want? There is a confusion around that Rahu aspect for a lot of you, of your actual desires and wants at this time. And so you want to look at where Rahu is in your chart and make sure that this is really what you want. This is really what you want to see happen, because Rahu is going to cast that illusion. And so this becomes a huge factor that you have to look at and make sure that everything that you are working towards, moving towards, is something that you actually want, especially with Mars in its conjunction, in its tight conjunction now with the planet of Rahu. And again, if you have not seen that Mars and Taurus video yet, I will leave a description down below in the comments. There are two parts to it. So if you are an Aries, Taurus, Gemini, Cancer, Leo, Virgo, then you want to check out that first part. If you are in the group from Libra to Pisces, then you want to check out the second part of that video. I hope you all enjoyed this video. If you like this, feel free to leave a like as well as a comment, and make sure to hit that subscribe button along with the notification bell so that you don't miss out on any future content, because we are getting very close now towards some major transits of 2021, including Jupiter in Aquarius and the eclipse season that is coming up as we are starting to move towards the summer season. If you have any additional questions, or if you'd like me to add on anything in a future video, anything related to Vedic astrology, I will get to that in a future video. If you are interested in learning more about Vedic astrology, there is a link below in the description along with the comments. I hope you all have a great day, and I will see you in the next video.